All right. Good morning, good night, good afternoon, whatever you're or whenever you're watching this. Hello. All right. Hopefully that pretest didn't go too bad and he didn't just write four for every single answer or something like that. I'm Mr. Marconi. If those of you for those of you from Mrs. Fry's class that don't know me, all right. For those of you from my class, hello. How we doing? Today, all right, after our pretest today, all right, today we're going to be solving quadratics by square roots. We will both be back tomorrow in school. The song of the day, excuse me, that's supposed to say song of the day, is Mistakes by Lake Street Drive because look at that, we all make mistakes. Did you know that? Now, I got this cool new pen action going on. I'm really excited about using that. All right. So let's talk to some couple. Let's talk about some square roots. We're going to skip the warm up for today because we're not there. We're talking about evaluating the expression if possible without a calculator. We're going to do a lot of skipping around today. The first one we're going to do, well, what is the square root of 49? Well, we know, well, hopefully we should know that is 7. Square root of 225, we can get in our calculator. Unless you know it, it's 15. Okay. The square root of negative 100, well, that's a great discussion to have. We don't know yet. No solution yet. Okay. There will be a solution, or there may be a solution. Who knows in a couple minutes here, but I'm not going to ruin that surprise. To simplify the expression, so if I have x squared equal to 200, or x squared equal to 200, remember, in order to undo this square term or to get rid of our square term, we need to use our inverse operation. Well, the inverse operation of a squared is a square root. Remember, what would I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so I have to take the square root of 200 as well. These cancel, all right, and I'm left over with x. There is no square root of 200, so I have to break it down. All right, I have to find two perfect squares that multiply into 200. Well, I know that I have 100 goes into 200, and I have 2. I know the square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of 2 just stays that. When we are solving, all right, when we're solving a square root, we need to include the positive answer and the negative answer. Very important that you have two solutions when doing these problems, okay? Two solutions. Just how 3 times 3 is 9, all right, negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. So we need to take into account that negative answer. So every square root has two solutions, a positive and a negative, okay? A positive and a negative, all right? Look at this one. We can't do this one yet. Oh well, all right, let's try. Let's try the next one. Sorry. Um, that was good. So let's try the next one. Let's try steps for solving a quadratic equation. Well, I'm going to go to number 8. Okay, I'm going to go to number 8. I'm going to do that one. Let's see if I can, how I want to do this. I'm going to pause for a second. Sorry for the noise. Yeesh. All right, sorry about that. All right, so we're back. So we're going to start off with I'm going to go to number 8, and my number 8 will be right here, and your number 8 will be down below, but I'm going to do this so I can do these steps along with you. Okay, the first step in solving a quadratic is to isolate the square term. The squared term. Bear with my handwriting. All right, isolate the square term. Okay. So if I'm looking here, our square term is 81x squared. So to isolate that, I'm just going to add 9 to both sides. So I have 81x squared equals 9. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I still want to get this squared by itself. So I'm going to have to divide by 81, divide by 81. Okay. Remember always to reduce, reuse, recycle. So I can see that's x squared equals 1 over 9. Okay. Next step, after you isolate the squared term, so I have this squared, I have x squared equals 1 over 9. I'm going to take square root. Both sides. Take the square root of both sides. And you can include the plus or minus. Okay. And what do I mean? So if I take the square root here, and I take the square root of this fraction, well, if I take the square root of a fraction, all right, what I really want to do is I want to split into 2. All right, I want to take the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator. All right, so I'm still going to have that square root step. So this is the same thing as writing the square root of 1 over the square root of 9. Okay. So, and I'm sorry I'm going on to this portion right here. It's still the same problem. So x, like I said, keep the plus or minus, all right? Square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 9 is 3, okay? And always, next step should be simplify if when possible, if it's not a perfect square. All right, if not. It's really weird writing this with this little thing. But we'll battle. We'll battle. All right. And lastly, isolate the variable again. And this will become with example number 10 that we're going to do. This is only when necessary. Isolate variable again if needed. Okay, so let's do one where it is needed because, well, you know, those are more fun anyway. This is your final answer, by the way. X equals plus or minus 1 over 3. Okay, we did not need to isolate the variable again because it was not needed. All right, so let's talk about number 10. This one's a doozy. All right, so I have a squared term here. And already, don't worry about these parentheses right now. I just want to get rid of the square term. My square term is already isolated. To get rid of that square term, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x plus 2 is now equal to plus or minus square root of 10. Well, that last step said, when applicable, isolate the variable again. Well, our x is not by itself. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2. Subtract 2. And I want to write it as negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. If this number was not underneath a radical, let's say it was 3, I would have to have negative 2 plus 3 and negative 2 minus 3. And you would actually want to figure out what those answers are. Okay, so there is a possibility where you could have 2 whole numbers here for your answer. Okay, but here we have the radical. All right, so we're not going to have 2 numbers. Okay, all right, well, let's talk about our good old imaginary numbers. Well, when do we use imaginary numbers? So what are imaginary numbers to begin with? Well, imaginary numbers first are used let's move this little thing around here. Used to take the square root of a negative number. Those of you in my class, we know this as the swimmer's arm. Remember the swimmer's arm? That was pretty good. I like that one. But that is a square root sign. I take the square root of a negative number. Okay, well, an imaginary number, what that means is we write that as I, that is our imaginary number, and I is equal to the square root of negative 1. Okay, I is equal to the square root of negative 1. You're probably like, what in the world? Holy buckets, what is he talking about? Don't you worry, I'll get you there. All right, and then I squared, if I do negative 1, the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1, well, I just get negative 1 itself. Okay. All right. Let's try one. What are you talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Feel free always to go back and rewind, rewatch, reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, Jalo. All right, rewatch this video if you want to. Okay. Here we go. So let's try this one. 9x squared plus 25 equals 0. So my first step, remember, is to isolate the x squared. So I'm going to subtract 25 to get 9x squared equals negative 25. I want to divide by 9 to get x squared equals negative 25 over 9. Okay. Next step, we isolated our square term. Next thing we want to do is take the square root, take the square root, take the square root. Okay. So x equals plus or minus. All right, the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of this negative 1 gives me I. So I write the square root of negative 25. The square root of negative 25 becomes 5I. Think of it as negative 1 times the square root of 25. The 5 comes with the 25, the I comes with the negative 1. All right, so this would be your answer. Okay, that would be your answer. Can I get another negative? Negative 1. Let's see if I can get another one. But look at this. This is like a little summary from today. Okay, a little summary from today. Your homework for tonight here is on your assignment calendar. Your homework for tonight is on the assignment calendar. Okay. Hopefully you saw that, or hopefully you see that. There's some mandatory problems and the optional review problems. The answer keys will be posted on Schoology. It's from my kids. All right. I'm sure Mr. Fry kids as well. All right. If like this one would be a negative answer. Maybe let's try this one. 2x squared equals negative 50. Forget it. We're not going to do that. But let's remember when we said I can't no solution yet. Well, this one now we know would be 10I because we know that the square root of 100 is 10 and the square root of negative 1 is I. All right. That's all I have for you for today. Yeah, hope you have a good day. Hope you had a great day. Hope you liked the sub. Don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel, etc., etc. Have a good one. You don't actually have to subscribe or like it, but be appreciated.